B'ez Hashem Yisborach, we begin Perek Shmini, the 8th and final Perek in the Hilchos Yibbum VChalitzah, in the Rambam Sefer Noshim, where the Rambam in this Perek discusses the laws when it comes up in situations of doubt. And Halacha after Rambam opens up regarding when we're not sure even who the Yavama is, as the Rambam explains. Misha Kiddush Achas Mishtei Achos. If someone got engaged to one of two sisters, ve'ein yidua eizmen Kiddush, he doesn't know who he's engaged to. For example, let's say he said to two sisters, I'm engaged to one of you, and one of the sisters accepted it for whichever one it is, or he said to the father of two girls, he says, one of your daughters accepted to me, is engaged to me, and he gave him the monies of Kiddushin. So we're not sure which one he's engaged to. The mace, and now this man dies, and he had one brother. So what does he do? So he has to chalitzah to both those sisters, so they can permit him to marry to other people, because he can't do Yibbum even to one of them, because maybe the other one is really his brother's wife, and it comes out that that one is Achos Kukasei, who he's forbidden to. He also cannot do chalitzah to one and then Yibbum to the other one, because Achos Chalutza is forbidden when the sister is alive. And therefore there's nothing that he could do, rather he has to do chalitzah to both of them, because each one has a zikah out of doubt for that of Yibbum, because maybe she's the one that his dead brother had been engaged to. So he has to do chalitzah to both of them. Now, let's say this one who died, this one who was engaged out of doubt to either one, he had two brothers. So then, so one of the brothers, he does initially chalitzah to one of them. And the second one could do Yibbum to the second girl, second woman, either way you look at it, as the Rambam explains. If this is the woman that his brother had been engaged to, great, I say, he's doing Yibbum to her. The fact what his brother did chalitzah to the other one was insignificant. That wasn't the one he was engaged to. And if this is not his brother's wife, great. He's marrying an unrelated woman, because his brother wasn't married to her, he was married to the sister. And her sister that was his brother's wife, his brother already did chalitza to the other one, and he's allowed to marry the sister of his brother's chalutza. His brother actually can't, but he could. So therefore, that's the way to do it. One brother does chalitza to one of them, and the other brother does Yibbum to the other one, and it's okay, as we just explained. But says the Rambam, but don't do it the other way around. Don't let one of the brothers do Yibbum first, because maybe the other one is really his brother's wife. The nimsa comes out that when he got engaged, he was getting married to the relative of the one that he has zikah to, which you're not allowed to, because a zikah is like somewhat of a marriage. You can't get married to the sister of Yizikuka. Now let's say let's say the two brothers went, and without permission from the courts, they married, the two brothers married those two women. One of them was his brother's wife, and one was the sister. So then, and then we're not going to remove them from that marriage that the brothers did, because each one could say that I went and married the appropriate woman, the one that was engaged to my dead brother. Now, and even so, that could be the first one that got married, maybe was actually married to Achesik Kasa, maybe really was the other one. But still, once the other brother went and married the other one, so that removes the zika, and it comes out that the first one was really permitted to be married, because it's not a chizukuk anymore. And you're going to say, as we've said previously, that kol yavama she'en karba b'shas nafili yavama yivra at the time when the zika was here, it was forbidden like a eshach shish leban masur lamas. It's not true. There was only a situation of doubt. We didn't know who it was. So therefore, and in general, zika is always a thing that is a temporary thing. It's not a real bona fide issue that there is. And therefore, although they're not supposed to, but once they did both marry these two sisters, one of them being the brother's wife and one of them being the relative of Zikuka, after the fact, we're not going to remove them, they could stay married. Halacha beis. Shnayim, two unrelated people, shekitru shtei achayis. They married two sisters. So, as like in a regular family, a bunch of girls, and people get married to them. So these brother-in-laws, who are unrelated, they got engaged to two sisters. The thing is, Zeni day is a kiddush. This one doesn't know who he got engaged to. Zeni day is a kiddush, and this one doesn't know who he got engaged to. Let's say these are identical twins or whatever it is. Doesn't make a difference. They didn't know who they got engaged to. And now they both died. Now and each one had a brother. So this brother does chalitza to both of them. Again, not sure which one is his sister-in-law, but and then this one chalitza to both of them, because each one is forbidden to do Yibbum, because maybe that is really the sister of his akuka. So out of that, you have to chalitza to both of them to permit them to get married to a another person, which is an obligation on either one of these women, whichever one is their brother-in-law. Now that's if each one had one brother. Let's say one of them had one brother, and one of them had two brothers. So the way it goes like this. So the one that had one brother, he does chalitza initially, he's the first one to act, he does chalitza to both of them. And the reason why is so that now, if any one of them is his yavama, which one of them is, they're permitted to go ahead and get married to other people. Now, Vashnayim, the two brothers, echad chalitza rishayim. So one does chalitza first to remove the zika on his brothers if it's his yavama, and of his dead brother. Vasheni miyabim. Now the second brother does yibbum to the other woman because if that's the right yavama, so good, he got the right one. He's doing yibbum, and if it's not, so there's no problem about lachisa kuka because she already got chalitza from his brother. But again, you wouldn't be able to do it like we said in the previous lacha yibbum initially, because maybe the other one is his brother's wife, and therefore this one is a chayisa kukase. And it's also forbidden for those who did chalitza to do yibbum to the second one, because it would be a problem about a chayis chalutzase. So the way you do it is, the one brother, he has to make sure there's no yavam lazar over here. Again, we don't know which was the rich one, so he can't do yibbum on either one of them. He does chalitza to both. Then from the two brothers, one does chalitza, and then again, if that's the right one, he did chalitza. The other one is not related at all to the dead brother. And if it's not, so then he's doing the yibbum to the right one. Now, like we said in the previous halacha, let's say both of them went before had they permission, and the two that are brothers, they went and married these two sisters. So we're not going to remove them from that marriage, and even if they were kahanim, which they would then have been forbidden with the wife of a chalutza, as the Rambam explains why we're not concerned over here. Because there's that there was two men who married two sisters. We didn't know which one is which. So in the story that we said, the one that had one brother, he did chalitza to both of them. So this chalitza that this individual did chalitza, misafik chalatz. Out of doubt, he did chalitza to these two women, which again, because maybe that was the yavama, but because it was out of suffix, the prohibition of a chalutza to a kohen is only rabbinic, because the Torah only says that a grush is forbidden, and the chalutza is similar to that. After the fact, initially we said, yes, we are concerned, but after the fact, where each one of these women, we're not sure if she's really a chalutza or not, because this guy did out of doubt to each one of these, his brother, who he was the singular brother, wasn't married to both of them, was to one of them. So each one is a sabik chalutza, since it's a sabik drabanan, but the Eved, if both brothers, that had the two brother ones, if they went and married both of them, which again, there's no problem about chaysa kuka, as we explained after the fact, there's no problem either of the Eishes Chalutza, for, even if they're Kayanim, because again, it was only out of doubt that each one, because each one is maybe the Chalutza of that other man who had one brother. Halacha Gimel. Okay, first we spoke about each one has one brother, then we spoke about if the one has one brother and the other one has two brothers. Now, says the Rambam, let's say each one had two brothers. So the way you do it is like this. So the brother of one of them does chalitza to one of them, and the brother of the other dead person does chalitza to the other woman. So there's Reuven and Shimon, there's Rachel and Leah. Now Reuven has two brothers and Shimon has two brothers. So one of the brothers of Reuven does to one of them, let's say Rachel. One of the brothers of Shimon does to one of them, let's say Leah. Now that each one had one chalitza from one of the brothers, the achakach then subsequently you have the second brother of Reuven. He does yibbum to the one that the brothers of Shimon had done chalitza to. So let's say the brothers of Shimon had done chalitza to Leah. So then the second brother of Reuven is going to do yibbum to that one. So here you have a maman of shach. So either way, it's going to be permitted. Because if this is Yavama, so fine. And it's not considered his brother's Chalutza, because his brother didn't do Chalitza to this one, but to the sister. And if it's not his Yavama, so good. She's a regular woman that's unrelated, and it's going to be permitted to him after she at least had some Chalitza from her Yavama, which is, again, that other man's brothers. So it's not a Chaysa Kuka, because here his brother did chalitza to the sister, which is his yavama, the zik was already removed because his brother already did chalitza. So either way, this woman that he's doing Yibbum on is going to be the other woman of that his brother had done chalitza from, but it's the one that from the other man's brothers that they had chalitza on. So either way, she's not a chayis zukukasai because of his brother having done already. If it's the right one he's doing, if it's the wrong one, his brother already did chalitza to the other one, so it's not a chayis zukuka. And if it's that other man's real wife, so his brother, he already had one brother, already did chalitza on that one. Now, obviously, this is only talking about that if both brothers didn't do chalitza to both women. But if they did, then it would be forbidden because of achayis chalutzasei. Now, now again, the second brother of the second man, he does Yibbum to the chalutza that the first brother's first wife that the first one had done. Again, each one basically switching off. Each one there's two men, and they each have two brothers. Each one's going to have one brother that's going to do chalitza, and then the other brother is going to do Yibbum on the other woman, which is the chalutza of what the other man's brothers had done chalitza on. Now let's say Kad Mishnehem. Let's say two brothers of one of the people who died. Both of them went in B'chotz L'Shten. Again, they weren't sure what's going on, which is the woman that he was married to. So they just gave chalitza. One gave chalitza to one, the other one gave chalitza to the other one. So in that case, Lo Yam Mishneh Ach Macher. Then the other two brothers of the other man, they should not do Yibbum to both of those women, because the first one to try to do Yibbum might be having Yibbum with Achei Sukukasai, which is not really Yibbum, because maybe the other one is really his brother's wife, and then he has Zika too. Or rather, Echad Cheletz Batchila, you should do like we had prescribed in the previous halacha. One first does Chalitza, and then the brother does Yibbum on the second one. So then, like we said, either way, if this is the real one, so he's doing Yibbum. If not, it's not Achei Zukuk anymore because his brother already did Chalitza on the other one, removing the Zika. And there's also no problem about from the other man, and maybe it's the other man's Yavama, because they already did Chalitza, both of them did on both of them already, and therefore he's allowed to do Yibbum. Now, but let's say if both brothers, after the other man's brothers did Chalitza on both of them, this man's brothers do Yibbum, so to speak, on both of them, same etimiyam like we said in the previous halacha, then we don't remove them. Ultimately, after the fact, there's no isser over here, and the lot of main matter, although the first one really was really going, and maybe it's Achoi Zekuka, but after the fact that the Zika is ultimately removed from the other brother, that's going to be okay. Halacha Dal. Now we talk about regarding when the men themselves, regarding the one who died and the Yavamin, when there's doubt regarding them. Says the Ram, Ha'isha shoy labanim. If a woman had sons, and her daughter-in-law also had sons. Now, Ben Saber Ha'isha, the woman, the mother-in-law, became pregnant. Ben Saber Kalasa, and her daughter-in-law also became pregnant. The older shtein b'machbo achas, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law together, they're giving birth in one cave. And during birth, the two children got mixed up. You don't know who's the mother of which one, which child is this from. Now, be that as may, the boys, they grew up together. They got married to women, and they died without children, and now there's a requirement for their wives to have Yibbum done with them. So, how are they going to be permitted? We don't know which generation this is even from this boy. So it says around like this: Bnei Hakala, the sons of the daughter-in-law, they have to do chalitza to both of the wives of these men, and without doing Yibbum. And the reason for that is shekol achas men safek sheishes achiv v'timu teres lo. Each one of these brothers, they're not clear. Is this their brother's wife? Because we don't know, was it the son of the daughter-in-law? On each one we have that doubt, and hence that the woman permitted to them to do Yibbum. But safek sheishes achiv, maybe she's the one, because again they got mixed up. Maybe she's the one that's the wife of their father's brother, which is forbidden the erva, and she's an erva on them. There's no Yibbum for your uncle's wife. Now, that's regarding the lower generations, the daughter-in-law's sons. Abnei Hazekena, but the sons of the elder one, and they could do chalitza or Yibbum to whichever one of these men who died without any children. Because she'im hizu eishes alcha, because if it's their brother's wife, her Yibbum, so they're doing Yibbum. V'mi eishes benacha, and if it's the younger generation, if it's really their sister-in-law if it's her kids, if it's his brother's son's wife, he's permitted to marry. There's no problem about arayis of marrying your niece, and the fact of that there's a zika of Yibbum. Well, that the younger generation, like we said, already did chalitza, so there's no more problem of Yavam Alazar, and therefore they could do, after the lower generation did chalitza, the second generation could do, the older generation could do either Yibbum or chalitza, whatever they wanted. Halacha hey. Let's say a different order. Let's say the definitive children, the ones that we knew the paternity, of the older generation and the younger generation, if those sons passed away. Now, the ones that were mixed up at birth, they're alive. So what do you do for them in relation to the definitive ones? So so this mixture, again, which one is from the mother-in-law and one's from the daughter-in-law, we don't know who's who. So their relationship regarding the wives of the older generation, meaning regarding the mother-in-law, they do chalitza, not Yibbum. She's sveik eshes achi aviv, because that woman that the husband died without any children is maybe going to be his father's brother's wife. It might be his aunt, because they might be, whichever one of these two men, we don't know, each one is maybe the daughter-in-law's child. So that's going to be that it's his uncle's wife that passed away, and there's no heter of Yibbum. Or Sveik Eshesachiv, it might be his brother's wife, because this, one of the two men that got mixed up, might really be from the older generation, which is permitted to do Yibbum. But out of doubt, you have to do chalitza, not Yibbum. Now, but let's say regarding if one of the sons of the daughter-in-law passed away. So then, when you have these two men that were the tarabis that were mixed up at birth, one should first do chalitza, and then the second one could do Yibbum either way, as the Rambam explains. If the first one who had done the chalitza was the son of the daughter-in-law, okay, he did the chalitza for his brother's wife. So that means to say the second of the mixture is the son of the mother-in-law. He's permitted to marry the wife of his nephew after she had chalitza from a yavama. So yeah, he's allowed to consummate that relation. And if the first one to do chalitza was from the older generation, was the mother-in-law's child, so he was doing chalitza to his nephew's wife, but he hasn't done anything. Hence, it turns out that the second of the mixture is really the daughter-in-law's son. And he did Yibbum on his brother's wife. But again, to do Yibbum first, that would be problematic, because maybe it's really his nephew's wife, and you're not allowed to marry a foreigner, even though there's no Isser Barayas, until she first has chalitza. But one does chalitza, the other one does Yibbum, and then Mamav Shach, like we explained, that's going to be okay. Halacha Vav. Mishlei Shasa Achar Misas, another type of suffix. Mishlei Shasa Achar Misas Bala Shalosh Chadashim. If a woman did not wait, you're supposed to wait after divorce, after being widowed 3 months. She didn't wait. V'nisa b'yodin, she gave birth 7 months after she got married. Now, be'en yedua, you don't know the paternity. In ben tishel rishon, is it 9 months from her first husband, whether she got widowed or divorced from, or in ben shevel achron, or is it really a 7-month child, which is a shorter type of birth, which could be after 6 months from the last husband? So here you also have, just like we had regarding them getting mixed up at birth, here this woman herself, we don't know who's the brothers, from which husband was it. Now, and now, this woman had sons from the first husband and the second husband. So if this child, which we don't know his paternity, if he passes away, so the sons from the first husband and from the second husband, they have to do chalitza to his wife, because it might be their paternal brother, and there's a zika. But they can't do Yibbum. Why? Because any one of the brothers from either one of the husbands, they're going to try to do Yibbum. It might not be his paternal father, but it is definitely his maternal brother, because it's the mother's. We know it's the mother's brothers, but we don't know which one this child is brothers paternally with. If something is only a maternal brother, it's forbidden as ever forever, because the whole heter of Yibbum is only by paternal brother. So therefore, they can only do chalitza out of doubt, but cannot do Yibbum out of doubt. So to the other way around, this doubtful son, when one of the brothers of either husband dies, and he does chalitza to the wives, and he cannot do Yibbum because they might be only his maternal brothers, and it's forbidden as an erva, and therefore he could only do chalitza, not Yibbum. Again, if it's only maternal, he wouldn't do anything, but it might be paternal. So he has to do chalitza for that zika, but not Yibbum. Halacha Zayin. Now, but let's say the first and the second husbands had sons, not from this woman who she got married before the time that she was allowed to get married to a second husband. So there were brothers, but not from her. Now one of the brothers died. Now, so this son that we're in doubt who was his real father, he could do chalitza to the wife of the one who died, or he could actually even do Yibbum. Why? As follows. Because if it's his paternal brother, he's doing Yibbum to his wife. And it's not his paternal brother, then they don't have any brotherhood at all, because like we said, the mother didn't have any sons from the first and the second, she only had this one. So, if it's his paternal brother doing Yibbum, if it's not, then there's no problem. Therefore he's permitted to marry his wife. And obviously we're talking about where there were no other brothers from the first husband, only this guy who's a suffix, because if there were other definitive brothers, obviously then there's a zika to them, and they were forbidden to marry in this case, which is part of the doubt, which is why we permitted that he's an unrelated person, and then actually after the fact, if one of them does chalitza, would be forbidden because it would be chalutzas achiv, which would be forbidden. He would talk about where he's the only brother, so therefore Mamanav Shach he could go ahead and consummate that relationship, because either doing Yibbum or he's not related at all. Halacha Ches. Meis ha-ben ha-savik. Let's say this doubtful son, he passes away. So then, echad mishnei ha-bonim ha-vadim. So what you do is, you have one of the two definitive sons, meaning that are not from this woman, and are not maternal brothers. From these two different husbands, you have each one having one son, where one does first chalitza to his wife, then the second one could do Yibbum, and as we said, it's really the inverse. If it's his brother, he's doing Yibbum. And is not his brother, because it's really from the other husband that was his father. Because he's the son of the other father. Already chalitza from the other father's sons. So again, either way, one of the father's sons does chalitza, then the other father's sons does Yibbum, and then manav shach either it's Yibbum or she's already permitted from her true Yavama having done chalitza to her. Now, Halacha Tes Ram continues regarding another situation of where a doubt-related halacha of Yibbum regarding if a woman heard that her husband passed away and she married. As Rambam says, if her husband went overseas to another country, he died and she got married, as the halacha allows in certain situations. But it turned out it was a mistake. Her first husband was still alive, and he came back, which the halacha primarily there, as Rambam said in Parakut from Hilchos Gerushin, that now she has to leave both husbands. She forbidden to both of them forever. But instead of that having happened, getting the get and so on and so forth, let's say those two husbands, the first and the second one, they were in a car accident, they both died. And now each one of those husbands, her first real husband and the second that she thought was her husband, both of them had brothers. So Allah is the brothers of both of them have to do chalitza and not Yibbum. Now, they're actually for two different reasons. The brothers of the first husband do chalitza minat Torah because it's really their brother's wife. Now, it's forbidden to Yibbum because of a rabbinic penalty, because just like we don't let her stay with her first husband because she didn't analyze so well, she wasn't so careful, obviously she should have researched and found out that he was really still alive. So just like there requires a get, so it requires chalitza. Now, the brothers of the second one only rabbinically have to do chalitza, because biblically there's no zig at all, because she was never married to the second one. She was really still married to the first one, she just didn't know that. But so that people shouldn't say that a Yavama could get married to another person without chalitza, so therefore we require her to get chalitza rabbinically from the second brothers. But obviously that chalitza is invalid and wouldn't exempt her co-wife, not from the first one and not from the second husband. But their halacha requires a woman to get chalitza from both sets of brothers. Now halacha Yud Ram continues regarding a situation when there's 5 sons out of doubt from 5 different women. As Ram explains. Chamash Nashim, continuing on these halachas of doubt. There's 5 women. Ben you do it that each one had a known son, meaning a definitive son. But then these 5 women, who each one already had one child already, and we knew who that child was from that mother, then these 5 women got mixed up together. These 5 pregnant women end up in the same hospital, the power goes out, they're in the same cave, and they have 5 other sons. Now, you don't know who's which child, there was chaos going on over there. So now these children, they grow up together, v'gdilu hatarebis, and they become older. Now these five they marry women, these five men. And these five men, then they pass away without any children. Now these five women, who are the widows of these five men, who we never knew which was his right mother, fall in front of these definitive five sons, where none of the brothers know which one is. They know one of these five is they knew if those five women had these five kids, and he doesn't know which one is his brother's wife. So so what do you do over here? So what you do is like this: the four of the women, they have chalitza first from every one of the brothers, meaning every one of the definitive brothers, out of doubt, maybe it's his brother's wife, does chalitza. The fifth brother, meaning the fifth known child of one of these five women, he marries this woman that already had four chalitzas from the four different brothers. As Rambam continues, halacha is Kate's household. How does this work? Because if he happened to get lucky that he's really the one that's his brother's wife, great, so he did Yibbum to her. The fact that all the other four brothers did chalitza, that was nothing, it was insignificant, it wasn't their sister-in-law. And if it's not his brother's wife, okay, that must have been then she was the wife of the brother of one of the other four, and those four already did chalitza on her, and one of them was the right one, so she's permitted to marry a foreigner, which is what he is. And then they do this with the second woman too, meaning of the widows. Four of them do chalitza. Now, as Ram explains, one of these four that's going to be doing chalitza, should be one that already married the first one, because he's not going to do Yibbum to the second one too, because it's better that each one of these brothers have a shot at doing Yibbum one time, because it might be lucky, he might get the one that is the Yavama of his dead brother's wife, and then it turns out he's fulfilling the mitzvah of Yibbum. Because if one person is going to be the one, he's the lucky guy, he's always going to be number five, he's going to marry all five of them, comes out at least four of them for sure not going to have the mitzvah of Yibbum done with them, because he's obviously only the brother of one of them, not all five of them, and therefore at least let us try, we might have that mazel, and it might be that each one's going to have Yibbum. So four of them are going to do chalitza. And the fifth man who didn't do chalitza on this one, he said he'll marry her until it comes out the five sons, which were definitive, that each woman had already had a definitive son before they had these doubtful sons. Each one of those five will marry one of these five women. After each one had already had chalitzas from all the other four. So everyone is going to get chalitza from the other four, and then switch off the round robin, going to get to that fifth one to be the one who's going to do Yibbum. As Ram concludes in these last two halachas, and halachid beis, says regarding this, about being careful regarding the situations of doubt, it says, you have to be careful with all these situations of doubt by these primary concepts that we were talking about. Because the Ram explains, anytime you have a doubt, that maybe this woman is a woman that requires chalitza to this man. Maybe she does not require chalitza. So although we're not sure, maybe she doesn't require chalitza, maybe she does. She's not permitted to get married to another person. Obviously, we're talking about a woman that doesn't even have Yibbum, but might require chalitza, might not. So she's not permitted to marry to another person until she first gets chalitza, because or else she has a zika and she's Yivama that's lazar. And anytime you're going to have a doubt, maybe this woman's bia is forbidden to this man, maybe they're retired, whether biblically or rabbinically. Again, obviously he cannot do Yibbum to her because it might be forbidden bia. Now, but any time that the woman had a full-fledged chalitza, or she had a full-fledged bia, cohabitation, which is Yibbum, then subsequently, then the co-wife is permitted to get married to another person, because again, one of the co-wives had already had a chalitza or a bia. And halacha yud gimel. And based on this path that we described, you'll understand the Torah, and you'll be able to rule b'chalas veikas regarding all doubt, shi'era, that will happen in Yibbum chalitza, in these laws of Yibbum and chalitza. We've already explained all the primary concepts that you can rely on, but Taden, you should know. Who you do chalitza to, who you do Yibbum to, who is exempt from Yibbum chalitza, and who is even fit to do Yibbum to. We have concluded the laws of Yibbum chalitza and the Rambam's Sefer Nashim with the help of Shammai.